Mara Vasquez stood outside the towering gates of Blackstone facility, her heart pounding like a drum inside her chest. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over the high steel fences topped with barbed wire. Armed guards stood at their posts, their faces blank and unreadable. Security cameras moved slowly, scanning every inch of the area. Anyone watching her would think she was just another visitor, but she knew the truth. She wasn't supposed to be here. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, holding out a visitor's pass she had worked hard to forge. It had taken weeks of planning to create a fake identity good enough to fool the security system. Now everything depended on how much time she had before someone noticed something was wrong. The guard at the front gate glanced at her ID and then at her face. "State your purpose," he said in a firm voice. Mara forced a polite smile. "I have a scheduled appointment in Wing C Research Department." The guard nodded slightly and typed something into the computer. Mara felt her stomach twist. She could see the screen reflecting in his sunglasses. A few seconds passed. Too long. A normal ID check took only a moment. Something wasn't right. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. She had planned for this. She knew the risks. But now that she was actually standing here, so close to getting inside, panic threatened to take over. The guard's eyebrows pulled together. "One moment, ma'am." He turned and spoke quietly into his radio. The words were too low for her to hear, but Mara knew what this meant. He was checking her credentials. If they found out the ID was fake, she would be surrounded in seconds. She had no choice. Before he could turn back around, Mara moved. With a sudden burst of energy, she dodged past the guard and ran straight through the gate. Shouts rang out behind her, but she didn't stop. The moment her feet hit the inside pavement, she knew there was no turning back. More guards reacted immediately. Their boots hit the ground as they rushed toward her, trying to block her path. Mara was fast, faster than they expected. She ducked under an outstretched arm, spun past another guard, and sprinted toward the main building. "Stop right there," a voice boomed through a loudspeaker. She ignored it. Her legs burned, but she kept running. She could hear the guards behind her, their heavy gear slowing them down. She was smaller, lighter, and quicker, but she knew that wouldn't matter for long. A siren wailed, and red warning lights flashed around the facility. The entire place was going into lockdown. Doors were sealing, guards were mobilizing, and cameras tracked her every move. Just a little further. She pushed forward, her breath sharp in her throat. If she could just reach the restricted area, she might have a chance to find what she was looking for. But then, something strange happened. Every single guard froze in place. Their movements stopped mid-step, mid-reach. They didn't fall. They didn't speak. They just stood there, as if someone had pressed an invisible pause button. Mara skidded to a stop, heart hammering. She had expected gunfire, a struggle, anything but this. And then a voice echoed through the speakers, deep, calm, and unnervingly precise. "You shouldn't be here, Mara." She turned sharply, eyes scanning the shadows. Someone was watching her. Someone had been expecting her. Mara's breath came fast and uneven as she stood in the middle of the long corridor, surrounded by motionless guards. It felt as if time had stopped. The air was thick with tension, and the only sound was the distant hum of security alarms. Her eyes darted around, searching for movement, anything to explain what had just happened. The guards weren't unconscious. They were standing upright, their faces blank, their eyes staring straight ahead. It was as if their bodies had been switched off in an instant. Then, the voice spoke again, low and controlled. "You've made a mistake coming here." Mara swallowed hard. She still couldn't see who was speaking, but the voice echoed from the facility's built-in speakers. Whoever it was, they were watching her, probably from the security control room. Her mind raced. She had planned for obstacles, guards, locked doors, even alarms. But this was something else. She took a cautious step forward. The guards didn't react. She waved a hand in front of one of them. Nothing. It was as if they had turned into statues. Mara knew she didn't have much time. Whatever had just happened, it wasn't permanent. At any moment, the guards could snap out of it. And when they did, she would be in more danger than ever. She took a deep breath and ran. Her footsteps echoed loudly in the empty hallway as she moved toward her target. The restricted zone was just ahead. If she could make it there, she might have a chance to find what she had come for. Then suddenly, a door slid open on its own. Mara skidded to a stop, her muscles tensing. This wasn't part of the plan. The door led to a dimly lit room, and though she couldn't see what was inside, something about it made her skin crawl. The voice returned, this time softer. "Step inside, Mara." She hesitated. This had to be a trap. Whoever was controlling the facility wanted her to enter that room. But why? She glanced behind her. The guards still weren't moving, but she couldn't count on that lasting much longer. Her choices were limited: turn back and get caught, or take a risk and walk through the open door. Her heart pounded as she made her decision. She stepped inside. The door hissed shut behind her. The room was cold, the air filled with the faint scent of metal and machinery. It was small, almost like an observation chamber, with a single table in the center. On it sat a black tablet, its screen glowing faintly. She took a cautious step closer. The screen flickered, and then her name appeared on the display. Mara Vasquez. Below it, in bold red letters, were two words that sent a chill down her spine. Access granted. She hadn't touched anything. She hadn't entered any credentials. Yet, somehow, this system already knew who she was. Her pulse quickened. Before she could react, the screen changed. A video began to play. Mara's eyes stayed locked on the screen as the video flickered to life. At first, the image was blurry, distorted by static, but soon it became clear. She saw herself. A cold shiver ran down her spine. The video showed her walking through a hallway, this hallway. She was wearing the same clothes, moving the same way she had just moments ago. But something was different. In the video, she wasn't running. She was being escorted by two guards. Her breath caught in her throat. That wasn't possible. She had fought her way inside, dodging security at every turn. Yet in this recording, she looked calm, as if she belonged here. The video continued. It showed her reaching this very room. The door slid open, just as it had now. She stepped inside, and then the screen glitched. For a moment, the image froze, the sound cutting out completely. Then a new scene appeared. Mara was sitting at the table, across from a man in a dark suit. His face was hidden in the shadows, but she could hear his voice. "We've been waiting for you, Mara." Her hands clenched into fists. This was impossible. It had to be fake. A trick. But the more she watched, the more real it felt. The man in the video leaned forward. "You don't remember, do you?" Mara in the recording shook her head slowly. "Remember what?" The man sighed. "That's what I thought." The screen flickered again, and suddenly, the video stopped. The tablet went dark, leaving Mara staring at her own reflection. She felt dizzy. What was this? A simulation? A recording of the future? No, that didn't make sense. But then, neither did anything else that had happened since she stepped into this facility. A soft beep made her snap back to reality. The screen lit up once more, displaying a countdown. 0:30. 0:29. Her pulse raced. 30 seconds until what? She turned to leave, but the door didn't open. She was trapped. Mara rushed to the panel next to the door, pressing every button she could find, but nothing happened. The numbers kept counting down. 0:15. Her heart pounded. Then the voice spoke again, the same voice from the video. "Stay calm, Mara." She spun around, eyes wide. There, standing in the corner of the room, was a man. He had appeared so silently that she hadn't even noticed him. His face was half hidden in the dim light, but she could see the cold calculation in his eyes. "I told you," he said, stepping forward. "You shouldn't be here." The countdown reached 05. Mara took a step back, her mind racing. Who was this man? How had he entered the room without her? Darkness swallowed everything. For a moment, Mara felt like she was floating in an endless void. There was no sound, no light, just emptiness. She tried to move, but her body wouldn't respond. It was as if she had been disconnected from reality itself. Then, suddenly, a bright flash. Her eyes flew open. She gasped for air, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Blinking hard, she found herself back in the hallway. The same hallway she had run through earlier. Her heart nearly stopped. The guards, they were moving again. She watched in shock as they continued their patrols, just as they had before. It was as if nothing had happened. The alarms were off. The red warning lights were gone. The facility was operating normally. Had it all been a dream? A hallucination? No, it felt too real. She could still feel the cold sweat on her skin, the weight of fear pressing against her ribs. She looked down at her hands. They were trembling. What just happened? A sharp noise snapped her attention forward. The door she had entered earlier, the one that had trapped her, was gone. In its place was a solid, featureless wall. No entry, no keypad, no sign that it had ever existed. Mara's breath quickened. This wasn't possible. She had been inside that room. She had seen the video. She had seen him, the man in the shadows. And now, it was as if none of it had ever happened. She took a step back, her mind spinning. If someone had reset something, did that mean she was in some kind of loop? Had she gone back in time? She clenched her fists, trying to calm herself. She needed answers. But one thing was clear. Whoever was behind this didn't want her here. She turned and scanned the hallway. The only choice now was to move forward. She couldn't go back, not without risking capture. Whatever was happening, she had to uncover the truth before she lost herself in this twisted game. Taking a deep breath, she moved quickly, keeping close to the walls. She didn't know if the security cameras were still tracking her, but she couldn't afford to hesitate. Then she spotted something. A security panel on the wall, just ahead. If she could access it, she might be able to find the facility's main server room, the place where all the data was stored. If there were records of what had happened to her, they would be there. She reached into her bag, pulling out a small device she had hidden inside. It was a hacking tool, a risky one, but right now risk was her only option. She pressed it against the panel. A soft beep. The screen flickered. Lines of code scrolled down at lightning speed. Then, access guaranteed. She exhaled sharply. She was in. A map of the facility appeared. She quickly scanned for the server room. There it was, sub-level 3. Just as she memorized the path, the screen glitched. Her own reflection appeared, distorted. And then, a familiar voice spoke from the panel. "You're getting too close, Mara." Her blood ran cold. They were watching. Mara's breath caught in her throat as the voice echoed through the panel. "You're getting too close, Mara." Her hands tightened into fists. Whoever was behind this wasn't just watching her. They were controlling everything. The guards, the doors, the security system, even time itself. But why? What was this place hiding? The screen flickered again, and for a split second, she saw something strange. Her own face staring back at her, but different. The reflection wasn't her, at least not the way she was now. The woman in the screen looked calmer, colder, more controlled. Then, just as quickly, the image vanished. The map of the facility returned, showing the path to sublevel 3, where the server room was located. If she wanted answers, that was where she needed to go. Mara took a deep breath and turned away from the panel. The hallway was still empty. The guards weren't chasing her, yet. She moved quickly, sticking close to the walls. Every step felt heavier than the last. She had been confident when she first arrived, thinking she could sneak in, grab the information she needed, and leave. But now she wasn't even sure what was real. Had she really been inside that strange room? Had she really seen that video of herself, or had someone been playing with her mind all along? She pushed the thought away. Focus. She had a mission to complete. She followed the map's instructions, making her way through the twisting hallways. At every turn, she expected alarms, guards, something to stop her, but nothing came. It was too easy, and that made her even more nervous. Finally, she reached a metal door with a small, sublevel access sign above it. A keypad blinked on the side. Mara pulled out her hacking device again, pressed it against the pad, and waited. Beep. The door unlocked. She stepped inside and found herself at the top of a dimly lit staircase leading downward. Cold air rushed up from below, sending chills down her spine. Something about this place felt wrong. But she had no choice. She started down the steps, one slow step at a time. Her footsteps echoed softly against the metal. The deeper she went, the darker it became. The facility above had been modern and well-lit, but down here, it was different. Old pipes ran along the ceiling. The walls were lined with thick cables. The air smelled slightly metallic, like dust, and something she couldn't quite place. At the bottom of the stairs, another door waited for her. This one had no keypad, no handle, only a small scanner that glowed softly in the darkness. Mara hesitated. How was she supposed to get in? Then the scanner beeped. The door unlocked on its own. Mara froze. She hadn't touched anything. Had someone opened it for her? Slowly, the door slid open, revealing a long, dark hallway lined with flickering lights. At the end of the hallway, a single screen glowed, casting an eerie blue light across the floor. She stepped forward, her heartbeat loud in her ears. And then, a voice echoed from the darkness. What did that mean? She had never been here before, had she? Her breathing was unsteady, but she forced herself to move forward. The hallway stretched ahead, dimly lit by the flickering lights. At the very end, the screen glowed brighter, as if waiting for her. She stepped carefully, her eyes scanning every shadow, every corner. If someone was here, they weren't showing themselves. As she neared the screen, it suddenly flickered, then displayed something that made her blood run cold. A file with her name on it. Mara VSQEZ, Experiment 207. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the keyboard. She hesitated, but then pressed a key. The file opened, revealing lines of data, reports, and a photo of herself. Not from today, not from any time she could remember. She looked the same, but something was off. The date on the report was 2 years ago. Mara's throat tightened. She scrolled through the document. Words jumped out at her. Subject 207 successfully integrated into simulation. Memory resets complete. Testing behavioral responses in high-stress conditions. Her vision blurred. This wasn't just about breaking into a facility. She was part of it. She grabbed the screen, gripping the edges tightly. No, she whispered. This is wrong. This has to be fake. But the evidence was right in front of her. She kept reading. Subject's memory stability remains unpredictable. If reset fails, alternative measures will be required. A chill ran down her spine. Reset. She had seen that word before, on the countdown timer in that strange room. Had she been reset before? Suddenly, a sharp hiss filled the air. Mara spun around, her pulse racing. A door had just opened on the side of the room. She couldn't see what was inside, only darkness. Then, footsteps. Someone was coming. She took a step back, her mind screaming at her to run, but her legs wouldn't move. A figure emerged from the shadows. The same man she had seen in the video. The one in the dark suit. He stopped a few feet away, his expression unreadable. "You weren't supposed to find this," he said calmly. Mara's fists clenched. "What did you do to me?" she demanded. The man sighed. "You already know." "No, I don't," she shouted. "I came here to find answers, but nothing makes sense. What is this place? Why is my name in your system? And why?" Her voice broke for a second. "Why does it say my memory was reset?" The man studied her for a moment. Then he took a slow step forward. "Mara," he said softly, "this isn't the first time we've had this conversation." Her body stiffened. Her mind screamed, "No, that's impossible." But deep inside, something whispered back. The man's words echoed in her head, each one hitting her like a sharp blade. No, that couldn't be true. It wasn't true. She took a step back, shaking her head. "You're lying." The man remained calm. "Am I?" He tilted his head slightly. "Tell me, Mara, how did you get here?" She opened her mouth to answer, but the words didn't come. She remembered running, the guards, the alarms, but before that, her mind went blank. A cold chill spread through her body. Why couldn't she remember how she got into this facility? How had she even known to come here? The man watched her carefully. "You feel it now, don't you?" he said. "That empty space in your memory. It's always there, right before you arrive." Mara's breathing quickened. No, no, this was a trick. He was trying to confuse her. She clenched her fists. "I don't believe you," she snapped. "I'm not part of this place. I came here because I needed to find something. Someone." The man nodded slowly. "Yes. And every time, you believe it's your first time." Her pulse pounded in her ears. "Every time." She turned back to the screen. Her name. Her file. Experiment 207. Memory resets complete. Her stomach twisted. "What is this?" she whispered. "What did you do to me?" The man took a step closer. "You were part of an experiment, Mara, one that should have ended long ago." She turned to face him again. "What kind of experiment?" He exhaled slowly, as if choosing his words carefully. "You volunteered for a program that tested human memory and response under extreme conditions." Mara's head spun. "That's a lie," she said, but doubt was creeping in. The man gave her a sad smile. "That's what you always say." Mara's heart pounded. If this was true, who had she been before all of this? What had she forgotten? She shook her head. "No, if I was part of this, I would remember. You can't just erase someone's life." The man's eyes darkened. "Can't I?" Before she could respond, the screen behind her changed again. A new video began to play. Mara turned, feeling a strange sense of dread. The footage showed her, but not just today. There were multiple versions of her, dozens, maybe more, each one moving through the facility, running through the same hallways, standing in the same room. And each time, it ended the same way. Reset. Mara's blood ran cold. She watched as one version of herself stood exactly where she was now, demanding answers from the same man. The conversation played out almost word for word. Her knees felt weak. This wasn't just an experiment. She had lived this exact moment 50 times, maybe more. Every time, she had believed it was the first. Every time, she had fought to uncover the truth. And every time, they had reset her. Her hands trembled. "Why?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Why are you doing this to me?" The man sighed, his face unreadable. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." Mara clenched her fists. "Then what was it supposed to be?" she demanded. "An experiment. A game. What was I before this?" The man hesitated for the first time. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, "You were the one who created it." The words hit her like a shockwave. Mara stared at him. "No, that wasn't possible." "You're lying," she said, but the doubt was already creeping in. The man shook his head. "You designed the system, the memory loop, the resets. It was your project, but something went wrong. You became trapped inside your own creation. Mara's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break. She turned back to the screen, searching for more answers. The file was still open, showing every version of herself, every reset. Her name was listed under Creator. Her knees nearly buckled. "No," she whispered. "I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't create something like this." "You didn't mean to," the man said softly. "You were trying to protect something. Or someone. But somewhere along the way, you became the subject instead of the observer." Mara's mind raced. It still didn't make sense. If she had designed this, why couldn't she remember? And what had she been trying to protect? Then she saw it. At the bottom of the screen, hidden among the data, was a line of text. A single note, written in her own words. "If I forget again, don't believe their lies. The reset is not the end. There is always a way out." Mara's breath caught. A way out. She turned back to the man. "How do I stop this?" For the first time, his expression changed. A flicker of something. Fear. "You can't," he said quickly. "The system is too advanced. It's designed to correct itself." Mara stepped forward, anger burning through her confusion. "Then why leave me a message? Why would I tell myself there's a way out?" She was piecing it together now. She had known this would happen. She had planned for this. And if there was a message, it meant she had left herself a way to escape. The man took a step back. "Mara." But she wasn't listening anymore. She turned back to the console and started typing. The system fought against her, flashing warnings, trying to lock her out. But deep inside, something told her she had done this before. She was the only one who could break it. The alarms began to blare. The lights flickered wildly. The man shouted something, but his voice was drowned out. And then, everything went black. For a long moment, there was nothing. No sound, no movement, no pain. Then, Mara's eyes fluttered open. She was standing outside. The air was fresh. The sky stretched endlessly above her, golden sunlight washing over the landscape. No walls, no alarms, no endless loops. She had made it out. And for the first time in what felt like forever,